my presentation, and I am going to pretend here for these few minutes that I am at the Iowa Council for the Social Studies Fall Conference, as actually will be held this coming October. And their theme for 2019 is Soaring with Social Studies, the time is now. And if you notice my topic for my PowerPoint here, discussing our experiences with race and identity, the time is now for us as educators to discuss race and identity with our students. Although it can be a really troubling and sort of mind-boggling task to do, I hope my presentation will show you some steps that we can take as educators to help us feel more comfortable talking about these issues as well as our students. So, why do we want to do this? I remember this quote from Banks and Banks early on in our course that really the whole point of multicultural education is to get our students engaged and get them talking with each other about themselves and about our world, and they need to know how to talk to one another in a very respectful, constructive way so that they can, as Banks and Banks pointed out here, interact, negotiate, and communicate. And so that we can all have a very civic and moral community that works overall for the common good. So that's why it's so vital and so important that our students can talk to each other about race and identity. So how are we going to do it? Step one is teacher prep. How can we expect our students to talk about race if we feel uncomfortable? So what I've linked in here for us are some resources that you can use to get yourself ready. And the Teaching Tolerance, they've been around a long time and they've got wonderful resources. If you just bear with me, I'm going to show you that link here. And this is just a quick handout put out by Teaching Tolerance that gets you thinking as an educator, where do I feel or how do I fall on a spectrum of comfort level talking about race and identity. So if you were to scroll through this resource, here's some guidelines, or here's some things that you can do to prepare yourself. Assess your comfort level. Here are some statements that you can use. A self-reflection activity. And again, these are all links, so if you want to go back and look, you can. I like this. Find comfort in the discomfort and be vulnerable. If we want our students to be vulnerable, then we need to showcase that as well. So again, this is LinkedIn, but it's a resource to get you thinking about your own cultural competence. How can you strengthen it and be aware of where you are in the process? Another resource I found was from the NEA magazine, just last month's issue. They had a quick page about testing your cultural competence. It was 3 questions, and I'm just going to share that with you as well. It was just a quick one-pager, but it just asks you to think, in your own building, how would you respond to certain situations? And it's pretty slick because, you view your answer. Oops, never mind on that one. Sorry about that, but it's a real quick questionnaire. How do you feel in certain situations? And again, getting you thinking about how would you respond, what would you do? So that is LinkedIn as well. I just wanted to show you quickly the page, so that's where I got out of my presentation there. So if you as a teacher feel ready, or at least willing to be vulnerable, then it's ready for the students to also be ready. And you can, I forgot about this slide. You can also take that race literacy quiz that we had, I think from week 5 material. That would be something good to reference as well. And then here we go, student lessons. So how are we going to do this for the students? Code of conduct. I always like that code that Barbara Cruz pointed out in her article from 2015, that really if you want to have a serious discussion with your students, you need to set the tone for your classroom. And that means having a code of conduct. And I even thought you could turn this into a contract and all the students sign it so that they know we're going to enter a serious conversation and I need to be respectful and I need to listen to my students. So now that the code of conduct has been set, then what are you going to have your students do? I wouldn't have them launch into a conversation right away because I think you're going to get a lot of blank stares. I know for me as an 8th grade teacher, if I just said, hey, talk about this topic, they're going to go every which way. And really, in middle school, students love to talk about themselves. So how can I navigate that conversation and get it going? I would start with some sort of general prompt, much like Wa pointed out from his 2004 article. It's using the identity of a Latino, but you can take that out and put in, how do you feel as a woman? How do you feel as a young boy? How do you feel as a white? How do you feel as an African American? You can switch those out and then have the kids journal. And then after they journal, you may not want to launch into a whole class discussion, but you can start with little steps, have a partner that they trust. I know in my class, my students are able to predetermine 3 or 4 partners that they use throughout the quarter, and more often they're friends of the students. So that helps if they can talk with a friend, then they can have that comfort level already established and they can share with each other what do they feel about what they had to say according to the journal prompts. So there's another student lesson. As you move forward and you move from partner and small group discussions into a whole class, well, what will that look like? Here are some other materials from Teaching Tolerance, because to navigate that whole class discussion, it's a lot of work on us to be prepared. And again, the Teaching Tolerance has some really great resources for us to look at. So again, it's that one that you've seen already from a previous slide, but if you were just to scroll down further into it, they have FISTA 5. Check in with your students. How is the emotional temperature in the room? Are people feeling uncomfortable, which would be the FIST, or are they okay to move on, which is number 5? For some of the younger kids, maybe a stoplight so they can visually see, how they're feeling as well. Talking circles, I thought this was a great idea. You gather in a circle and create, go over norms, build trust. So, and then again, the journaling comes up as well. So thank goodness here for Teaching Tolerance. They've got a lot of great resources. I'm going quickly, but again, this is LinkedIn so that you can take a look at it too. And then that's it. It was kind of a quick hit here. Here are my references so that you can look back as well. But it's just information, resources for you to use so that when you're ready to engage in some conversation with your students, you've got a place to look and reference and get this going. Because as I said in the beginning, the time is now for us as educators to talk with our students about race and identity. Thanks.